back. It is Bones. And in this one, I wanted to have a little bit of fun and build some different versions of the Justice League. Now, with the recent release of the classic Wonder Woman, that kind of opens us up to finish off the Justice League, and that got my brain rolling to build other versions of the League. Now, this takes me into the fact that I always say that it is awesome to get different versions of characters, alternate versions of heroes. That way you can use them in different setups. So when McFarlane actually releases an alternate version of a figure, or when he releases a figure, people think that's the only chance we're going to have at that figure. But usually that is not true. McFarlane will eventually make another version. Now these are actually sectioned off. I have my little four teams here, different alternate versions of the Justice League. Now, one thing we are really missing is a regular Cyborg. So that is one figure that we do need to get from McFarlane just to open it up and have that missing member of the Justice League, at least the main core of it. But I did have fun setting these up, and I think these figures actually look really good together. Now, let's go ahead and start on this end here, because of course this is the Death Metal Justice League. Now, I know this is probably Death Metal is like the most decisive part of the multiverse. A lot of people really wish McFarlane would not even make these figures. And then you have a lot of people that actually love these figures, and this is what got them back into the line. Now, me, I've always said it. I don't mind the Death Metal because that's something new, something that we've never seen before. But I do also enjoy classic versions. So if we do get a chance to get it all, get tons of different alternate versions, then that is fine with me. But let's take a look at it. These are all sort of, I had to, mix and match to get a sort of death metal vibe feel to this form of the Justice League. Now, with the Superman, of course, you have this sort of strange, rockerish, half dark side form of Superman. A lot of people didn't like this figure, but I actually really enjoy him. He is an awesome looking Superman. You just got to open yourself up and see him for what he is. Then, of course, the Batman in this team is from Death Metal, and he's the one that usually rides the skeletonized Batcycle. But another cool looking version of Batman with the trench coat and the spikes. And then my Wonder Woman for this one is, of course, the Death Metal Wonder Woman. Actually, one of the most beautiful and good looking face sculpts out of all the Wonder Woman. Love her blue tinted hair. And of course, she does have her chainsaw of truth. So then I had to start figuring out the rest of the members. I did get the Flash. This is the Barry Allen Flash from the Death Metal Speedster wave. So he actually fits right into here. A pretty unique looking version of a Barry Allen Flash. The Aquaman is actually the Aquaman from Flashpoint, but it is the one that I modified so he wouldn't have that yelling head. Repainted him, and he just has that sort of attitude that fits right in with the death metal. Now, I wanted to add a lantern in each version of these teams. So this one, I did add the Dread Lantern, which is a possessed form of Alan Scott. And of course, he fit right into this death metal team. Really spooky looking figure. And it was pretty obvious that he would have to be included in here. And finally, bringing in the rear, because I only have so many forms of Martian Manhunter, and I did pick Shazam for one of these teams. I picked I think it's Infected Shazam or Evil Shazam, but the same thing, the way he is sculpted and designed, he fits right in with this sort of darker form of the Justice League. So that was a pretty cool little team that I made up. Now moving on to this next team, this was kind of like my kooky version of characters that They have sort of, out there costumes. They're not the normal forms of the characters that you would expect. So, of course, the Superman, I went with that smiling Superman from the Ultraman 2 pack. Of course, modified to make him look a lot better because when you get him out of the box, he does look kind of goofy. But after actually lifting up the neck peg and making him taller, giving him some alternate gesturing hands, he is one of my favorite Supermans. I just don't know what it is about him. He has something that he's really fun to pose, and he gives you that sort of off the wall Superman version. So that's an alternate form of the Blue Boy Scout. Now, for the Batman, I just kind of went with something simple, which was the Rebirth Batman, mostly because he has those weird colors like the purple under the cape, the bright yellow around the bat symbol, and the trim of the belt. And I just thought he felt, kooky enough to be in this team. And then the Wonder Woman I use is actually the DC Direct New 52 Wonder Woman. And since we don't have an actual McFarlane version of that, this is sort of my standby Wonder Woman. Of course, 5 points of articulation, but she fits right in with these this like weird misfit ensemble of the Justice League. Now for the Flash, I actually went with the Page Puncher's Flash. And like I said before, it's just that weird costume. He has that visor. Feels sort of like mech tech or something like that. And I just thought he fit right in with the rest of this colorful assortment of Justice Leaguers. Now for the Aquaman, I also picked the Page Puncher's Aquaman just because he is completely different from the other forms of Aquaman. He has his own look. His armor has its own style and sculpt work. And I thought he just fit in with this strange cast of characters. Now, for the Lantern, I actually went with that sort of 90s suited Kyle Rayner. It's just freaky enough to fit with these guys. He has that weird costume, a lot of white in it and lime green, and it just really works with this version of the Justice League. And like I said, I also have in here Shazam. Now, this is a more classic looking Shazam, but at the same time, the costume has tons of scope work. Not necessarily your, golden age Shazam. So I thought he would fit in perfectly in here, sitting at the back of the team. You got the big cheese. And like I said, this is just like a kooky version of the Justice League. Now, up next, I actually have my more modern take on the Justice League, which is actually pretty interesting. I do have the Superman 1000, but he does have the thigh lift to make him a little bit taller, some alternate hands, and just your basic classic looking Superman, but with a dark color scheme. Now, the Batman that I used is actually the Three Jokers Batman, but I did give him an alternate utility belt and change the trunks just to give him a little bit more different look than the Three Jokers Batman. But he still has that classic dark design for the Dark Knight. And the Wonder Woman that I use is actually the DC Essentials Wonder Woman. Now, for a long time, she was like sought after to use as a placeholder, as a Wonder Woman for your DC multiverse. But now that we have the regular released Wonder Woman, I am still going to use her throughout my collection, but hopefully we'll get more different versions of Wonder Woman in the future. But she fits right in with this team. Now, for the Flash, I actually picked the Rebirth Flash just because his costume has a lot of sculpt designs and textures to the suit that I thought he fit in with a more modern take on the Flash. The Aquaman, of course, is the long haired version with the beard, which is a more modern take on the classic King of Atlantis. Now, for the Lantern, I actually went with John Stewart, Green Lantern. Actually, this figure pretty much grows on you the more you move him around and have him in your collection. He also has like a cool, design costume just like the Rebirth Flash. So they work well together. But that is my Lantern for this version of the Justice League, and that is John Stewart. Now, the Manhunter that I use for this setup is actually the more modern suited Martian Manhunter. We did get two versions, but another difference is that I actually painted him more of a metallic green with a little bit of sheen on it. And I think it just makes him look more alien and just adds a little bit of feature to him that wouldn't be on the normal release. But of course, like I said, this is my modern take on the Justice League. And then finally, right here we have my classic version of the Justice League. Now, of course, with the Wonder Woman being released, she fits right in with all these classic versions. You have my definitive custom version of Superman, who is a rather tall Superman. Beautiful figure. Love having him in the collection. And I love having the option of a taller Superman. Now, the Batman is actually the Hush Batman, the black version, but I did also change his trunks to give him a darker utility belt scheme. And he just fits right into your classic Justice League. I mean, I was trying to think of different Batmans to use for these, and you don't really ever see a Justice League Batman that is wearing his actual gray and blue costume. That is more for like when he's in Gotham or like Nightfall. So that is why I don't use any of those Batmans. This is mostly like dark color schemed Batman figures. And of course, you have the classic Wonder Woman that we just received from McFarlane. Of course, she was made to be with these classic versions of these characters. So, really happy to finally start finishing off my Justice League. Of course, you have the Flashpoint Flash, Barry Allen, which is, perfect for this classic style of the Justice League. You have my custom classic Aquaman with the NECA Flash Gordon head. And for me, you just can't beat this. This, for right now, is my classic version of Aquaman. Now, here's the Green Lantern. Now, although he has the same suit as John Stewart, which is more of a modern suit, this is the only one we actually have right now. So this is my stand-in for Hal Jordan. But I did do some modifications to him. I shortened his arms and gave him a bigger power ring. So he does have a little bit of that classic feel. And I just put it as that he's from space, so his costume is a little bit more out there than the rest of the characters. And then finally, we have the classic Martian Manhunter. Now, this is the alternate version of this modern one. I did do some things to him, like I extended the head peg and I also did the thigh lift to make him a taller figure because, of course, he's supposed to be taller than the majority of the Justice League lineup. But one thing for sure, I am happy to finally be able to build different versions of the Justice League. Now we can only build on it more, and we need that classic cyborg for the Justice League, and we can add some other different alternate versions as we move along. But anyways, guys, those are my little Justice League teams for you guys to take a look at. Really had some fun putting these guys together, and a lot of times they're actually really fun to pose and get into some action setups. But anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.